All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. Just had a nice little show with the Hawk's Nest. If you missed it live, then you can check out the video on demand on either of our channels. Go check it out. We're talking about Clint Kubiak a lot. And it's time for another edition of How Much to Keep. We're getting near the end here. And it's not looking like we're going to run into too much more that is all that compelling a debate. There are other notable players that the Seahawks have to make a decision on, but the decision is much more binary. Whereas a decision on an unrestricted free agent has a lot of layers to it, and there's a lot of negotiation. When you're talking about a restricted or an exclusive rights free agent, it's very different. So we're going to put those guys in separate videos. But Pharaoh Brown is going to be up today. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of interest in bringing Pharaoh Brown back for the Seahawks in 2025. But let's have a conversation about it because we're probably not going to keep Noah Fant. So we do need to add tight ends this offseason. We know that. So if you lose Brown and Fant, that increases the task you have in front of you. So Pharaoh Brown going to turn 31 this offseason, so getting up there in age. Played a decent amount of football so far in his career. Established himself as one of the better blocking tight ends in the league in New England in 2023. Had a nice little season with New England in 2023. Signed for a little more than $3 million with the Seahawks. And yeah, it didn't work. He made no real impact as a pass catcher. He had more fumbles than touchdowns. 1 fumble, 0 touchdowns. And he really didn't seem like he was a very good blocker either. I know Pro Football Focus is not always going to nail their stuff when it comes to things like blocking. And I'm not saying that we need to take Pro Football Focus as gospel because they didn't even like Pharaoh Brown's blocking that much in previous years. But you take a look at his grades in New England, where he was considered to be a pretty efficient and effective player, was considered to be at least an efficient target, and was a capable blocker for the most part. And then you look at what he did here in Seattle, where he had, 2 games all year? Well, really 1 game all year where his Pro Football Focus grade stood out in any positive way whatsoever. And his blocking grades were well below the well below the sea level. And he has 5 penalties in 263 snaps. There's not much to get excited about here, and he had a really bad season. So I don't know if anybody's going to want to bring him back for any price, but how much would it cost to bring him back? That's a little bit hard because he just came off a pretty cruddy season. 45.6 PFF grade overall, didn't play that much. So it's not like he got overworked. If anything, he was underworked. Remember, he didn't play until week 3 because he got hurt. So maybe that has something to do with it. But this guy was supposed to be good at blocking, and for me, the blocking was forgettable. I thought that the blocking on the part of Pharaoh Brown was not that different than what you got out of Noah Fant. And Noah Fant's not a blocker. So let's go to the tight end list, average annual value sorted, and let's skip right down to Pharaoh Brown's current contract, which is 35th, 1 year, 3.2 million. It has to be less than this, right? There's no way he's going to get a pay bump after a season where he didn't do anything, right? Because if what he did in New England got him the 3.2, then what he did in Seattle should definitely get him less than 3.2. That just seems like common sense to me. I don't even know why you'd have a conversation about paying Pharaoh Brown any more than that. So we're definitely talking about a 1 year deal, and we're definitely talking about something less than 3.2. So let's go down from here. Let's take a look at Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki, 28 years old last offseason, signed a 1 year, $2.5 million deal with the Bengals. So it's kind of a similar situation. Gesicki obviously doesn't play like Pharaoh Brown, but you look at what he did in New England to get the 2.5 million last offseason. He was certainly a more prolific receiver than Pharaoh Brown has ever been. Gave you about 30 catches, 250 yards, a couple of touchdowns. I mean, he's out there. He's making an impact. He's doing something, right? Pharaoh Brown wouldn't have gotten these numbers if you had given him 3 seasons in all likelihood. And Gesicki, you go to Pro Football Focus, they thought he was okay in 2022, workable, not good, according to this, not even average, but not a disastrous player at all. And then the next year, they still weren't a big fan of him or anything, but it wasn't anything where he completely fell off a cliff, just a lack of efficiency, I guess you would say. So he's not good. And the other thing to think about with Gesicki is he's not really known for his blocking in the way that Pharaoh Brown is, so you're not getting that value, but arguably you're not getting it with Pharaoh Brown either. So still too high. 1 year, 2.5 million based on the market doesn't make sense. So let's keep going past Gesicki and take a look at Johnny Mundt. Johnny Mundt of the Minnesota Vikings last offseason got 1 year, 2 million flat at the age of 29. Is that a workable comp for Pharaoh Brown? Maybe. Let's take a look here. So Johnny Mundt, if you look at what he did to earn that contract with the Vikings, the previous 2 years he was also on the Vikings, was a marginal playmaker. 19 catches, 17 catches across these 2 years gave you about 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's out there. He's making plays. He's doing stuff. He actually started 12 games in 2022. So it's better production than Pharaoh Brown just had. Although Pharaoh Brown's had seasons like this in the past. You go to Pro Football Focus here, Johnny Mundt. 2020, yeah, this is 2023. So it's the previous year. 70.8 PFF grade. The blocking scores are mediocre, but they're still better than anything Pharaoh Brown did. And this should be 2022. If you go to the previous year, I mean, the PFF stuff is pretty lackluster. 53.9. Nothing's really above average, but it's actually still better than Pharaoh Brown. And a lot less penalties as well. He had 2 penalties and 1 penalty. Pharaoh Brown had 5 in 1 year. So I still don't think we're there. I still think that if you are evaluating objectively based off what other players have gotten in similar spots, we are not there yet. So Johnny Mundt, let's get down to Chris Manhertz. Chris Manhertz of the New York Giants, 31 years old last year. 1 year, call it 1.4 million. So very close to the veteran minimum, but slightly more. 1.3775. So call it 1.4. Chris Manhertz. And he, it's a little Pharaoh Brownie, right? Maybe it's not quite as prolific. Like in 2022, he was in Jacksonville and had 6 catches, even though he played in every game. In Denver, 16 games, had 2 catches. So, okay, maybe we've gotten about here, right? Chris Manhertz has never had a 100-yard season in his career. He's not a pass catcher. He's not any kind of a playmaker whatsoever. Even Pharaoh Brown hasn't beat there. Go to Pro Football Focus, and you can see they think his pass blocking is very good. They do give him a lot of credit there. This is 2023. And then, again, this should be 2022. My bad. Things reset over here. They love his pass protection. They think he's one of the best pass protecting tight ends in football. So maybe we've kind of gotten to the right place, but even this guy, at least he's got something to hang his hat on in terms of like, I'm really good at this, and Pro Football Focus backs me up on it. Pharaoh Brown doesn't even have that right now. Right now, he's not good at anything until he proves otherwise. So maybe we're there with Chris Manhertz. I don't know, but you can make an argument that we still got to keep going. We got to keep going past a guy like Chris Manhertz. And I don't know if we actually will, because some people are going to say, well, Pharaoh Brown had a bad year. He's still a workable player that has value. Possibly. But there are a lot of players out there like Pharaoh Brown. You don't need to invest money in Pharaoh Brown. You can go get somebody who's going to be younger and is going to drive a little bit less of a desire to make big money because they won't have been in the league as long. You can find a Pharaoh Brown equivalent pretty easily. So just for the sake of argument, let's keep going down to Tanner Hudson. Last offseason got 1 year, 1.3 million with the Bengals at the age of 29. Same as a guy like Eric Selbert and Ross Dwelly, by the way. So we've gotten down to this caliber of player. Guys making about 1.3 million, not even actually. Tanner Hudson, I mean, I'm not going to say he's great or anything, but you look at 2023, which was the most recent year he had before he got this contract, gave you about 40 catches. That's more than Pharaoh Brown's ever been. And obviously, that doesn't mean that he's better than Pharaoh Brown, but he is better than Pharaoh Brown either way. Right now, how could you say anything else? So that's the receiving stats. Now, as a blocker, they actually gave him a good score in 2023 for his run blocking. Not that he run blocks a lot, but I mean, when he did it, he, according to them, did okay. And again, we reset to 2024, 2022. They thought his blocking was overall pretty bad, but honestly, the run blocking is still better than what Pharaoh Brown did last year. So if we take that as an indicator of what he is as a player, then honestly, Tanner Hudson is probably worth more than Pharaoh Brown, or was worth more last year than Pharaoh Brown is worth right now. So at that point, you're getting down into vet min territory. You're getting down to like Geoff Swaim, who is making or was making 1.21 million last year. Now, I don't think we need to go that far. And I feel like Pharaoh Brown has a little bit of a reputation in this league that'll get him a little bit more money than a guy like a Tanner Hudson, but you're right there, right? 1.3 million. 1 year, 1.3 million would be my estimate. There's a little bit of a market for a player like this, but the player needs to actually play well. And Pharaoh Brown's coming off a bad year, so he could easily get passed over, even though he's been capable in the past. So 1 year, 1.3 million. Would I do that? No. I'm trying to move on. I'm not doing it for the veteran minimum. I'm not even positive he's going to be worth that, right? Usually with a player like this, you can say like, well, objectively speaking, he'll be worth the veteran minimum. I don't know. I don't think he was worth a veteran minimum last year. So I'm going to say no matter what. Let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.